Okay, so I just did my first 5K in these shoes, and you can't tell it's a little hot out. It's about 41 degrees with the humidity. Number one thing I noticed with these shoes, which is amazing, is the breathability. It's almost see-through in that screening that they have, and my feet aren't really sweating. The other thing that I thought for sure, and I'll check this out because I have brand new white socks on, is I thought there'd be a lot more dust, sand, and dirt getting in that screening material, and it doesn't feel like there's any between my toes right now, which is interesting to say the least, but we'll have a look at that when I get back. Lastly is the durability. As you saw earlier, I kind of went down, and luckily no one was around to see except for all you guys, and I thought there'd be a rip in the screen on my first run, and there wasn't. It's pretty damn durable, to be honest. So I'm impressed with that. And finally, how light these things are. It's like you're running with nothing. You just feel a little bit of tension at the top of the tongue where the laces are laced up right at the top. But other than that, these things are ridiculously light. Like, they have to be the lightest shoes that I own. Racing shoes, racing flats, running shoes, trail shoes, all the above. So I don't know the stats of them yet, but they're probably really light. I think the SL actually stands for super light. We'll look into that. And then the last thing too is, I'm not sure if there's a rock plate in here or not, but I didn't feel the large chunks of gravel when on the thick gravel trail. So with that being said, I'm gonna look into that too, because the outsole is so thin. I thought I'd be feeling every little rock a quarter inch and bigger in my forefoot, which I didn't. So we'll take a look at that, and we'll come back with all the info for you guys. So this is the Arc'teryx Norvan SL shoe. Now, it's a trail shoe, and I can confirm that the SL does stand for super light, because this shoe only weighs in at 6.5 ounces. Now, even though it is super lightweight, it does boast a 7mm heel to toe drop. So you do get adequate cushioning in through the heel during heel strike. Now, if you're a forefoot striker, we're gonna get into that in a few minutes, just to talk about what's going on there and how much protection there is for your forefoot. But first, let's talk about what the retail of this shoe is. In Canada right now, it's retailing for $170 Canadian, and in the United States, it's retailing for $150 US. So when we talk about the overall build quality of the shoe, we'll start with the heel collar. The heel collar there's definitely adequate cushioning. You can see it in certain spots here. It's very isolated, but it does provide the appropriate cushioning where needed. The interesting part about this heel collar is that there's this kind of flimsy top to the heel collar that's extended, and it's not super tight to your ankle or Achilles, which is good. It does do it's comfortable, I should say, but it does do its job at keeping debris and rocks out from your shoe. One thing that I thought would happen is if I was wearing ankle socks during a run, or just even a hike for that matter, I thought the weird cushioning back here where it's isolated would cause the sock to ride down into the shoe below the heel collar, which drives me nuts. But I've not had that happen a single time wearing these, so I was pleasantly surprised with that. The other thing with the heel collar is there is this handy loop, if you can see here, in the back. So it's made for putting a carabiner onto the shoe and putting it onto a pack. You wouldn't even feel these things hanging off the back of your pack. So it's quick access for that, something that's firm to attach to. Another thing that this can be used as is a heel loop to help put the shoe on. So, I mean, I can easily fit my index finger in there. I think most people would be able to do that unless you have really chubby fingers. But I did see a review online that gave these shoes a 1 out of 5 because it didn't have a heel loop. And this little extra loop in the back of the heel collar is a perfect substitute for a heel loop, because you can easily get your hand in there and pull the shoe on with ease that way. So the Vibram outsole is thin. It's almost paper thin, as you see through here. A little bit more in through the heel of the shoe, and it tapers slightly into the forefoot. The lugs on this shoe are only 3.5 millimeters deep, so they're not overly aggressive, and as you can see, they're spaced out relatively wide. So that's great, because that leaves the dirt on the trail rather than on the bottom of your shoe, and it being a lightweight shoe, you don't want to carry around any extra weight, so it's great that it sheds mud and dirt really easily. My biggest concern with how thin this shoe is and how lightweight it is protection of the forefoot. And there is a rock plate that's built in here, so it is pretty good. And if you saw my first run, my first impressions of the shoe, it felt good. It felt very protective. However, after running on it a few times on gravel roads up, like cottagey type roads up north, and these are hard packed 1/4 inch granite roads, if you get a piece of that 1/4 inch granite in the right spot in between these widely spaced lugs, you will 100% feel it. Not to the point where you can't run anymore, but you'll definitely feel it if you land in the wrong spot. So when you're running on terrain like that, then pick your landing spot accordingly. But for the most part, smaller rocks and debris, it will protect you and you won't really feel them that much. If we move on to the tongue also has very specific pattern cushioning throughout. It does a great job at protecting the tendons on the top of your foot from tight laces. So I didn't experience any lace bite or any chafing whatsoever on this tongue. So you know, it's nice and light, and there's actually a lot of breathability through the tongue as well, which is a nice feature you don't usually see too often. Obviously, if we had to pick a star of the show for this shoe, or a main feature that stood out, it's obviously how light this shoe is. It's incredibly light. But if we had to pick a runner-up to that, I would totally pick the upper. And this mesh-like material is less like a mesh and it's more like a screen material that you'd find on a window. So it's very rigid, and it had a weird feel to it when I first got it. It's worked in a little bit better, but the rigidity makes it feel like there's a ton of room in the forefoot as well, because when you first wear these shoes, the mesh doesn't collapse down on your foot. So you feel like it's very roomy up there. Even though these aren't a considerably wide shoe, it does give a lot of accommodation in your forefoot, which I really like. Now, the breathability of this mesh or screen material is insane. It's the most breathable shoe I've ever had. If you get a wet foot, you go through a stream crossing, a river crossing, it's gonna shed water like crazy. And not only on top of that, it's gonna dry really quick because the airflow in this thing is insane. I mean, just washing these shoes after a dirty run one day, just dumped them in the lake, pulled them out, and they were dry within a couple hours of sitting in the sun. It was unbelievable. With the breathability, I was concerned that with so much space here that there was going to be some sand and dirt that gets in here. Now, to be honest, when I first wore these, I thought there wasn't any getting in, but that was a bold-faced lie. After a while, I did notice it's just like any other running shoe. It doesn't let in more sand or more dirt, but definitely on sandy trails, you will notice if the sand or dirt is fine enough that it is going to get in there and it's going to get between your toes and your socks. So it's just something you're going to have to deal with. But once again, it's super easy to clean if there is sand or dirt in there. Okay, in conclusion, I want to talk about value here. And we know that Arc'teryx as a brand is usually a little bit more expensive than other brands out there. And I've tested jackets, other type of apparel from them that has stood up amazing. The quality is superior to these other brands as well. So it totally justifies the price. Now, I never looked at Arc'teryx as a shoe brand per se. And when these came out, and these actually looked very appealing to me when we tested these, I was pleasantly surprised. I did not think the functionality or the quality of these shoes might be up to all their other garments that they make, but I was wrong. These shoes are awesome. They've held up so well. They are super durable. As you saw when I fell in that original video, that mesh, which I thought would break on the first run I had, that was from a stick digging into the side of the mesh. It didn't break. I can't even see where it is actually now. So I was so surprised with that, and they've held up great. I've had so many runs, so much hiking on these shoes too, and they've been great. There's not a lot of stability in these because they're so lightweight, but I mean, that's par for the course. To get more stability, you would sacrifice some of this weight. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that the Norvan SL is awesome. It kind of, most shoe companies that I've had in the past they just feel like another good shoe. This feels like a great shoe. I would definitely recommend this shoe. If you're looking in for a lightweight trail shoe, I mean, this is your best bet. I mean, I was so happy with this. So at the end of the day, is this worth the money? Yes. If you're looking for a lightweight trail shoe that you want, that's durable and the build quality's there, look no further than the Norvan SL.